This video will demonstrate adjusting the Carter microprecision style guides for bandsaw blades. The Carter microprecision guides come in 3 different sizes, CP10, 20, 30. They also go by the name Zephyr. This is the 20s. And there's a couple different steps to adjusting these. They can be tricky and you can screw it up. So I wanted to go through some of the steps here. There's 2 parts. I'm actually doing the second part in this video. The first part relates to how to mount these on the saw. Generally, these will mount using these 3/4 holes and a piece of round bar. There'll be some kind of bracket on your bandsaw that allows to adjust the position of this thing side to side and in and out. That is a function of the bandsaw. I'll do a second video later on showing that for the forest machinery. But then once you have the guide located with the mounting bracket, the guide assembly mounted, then you can position each of these 3 separate guiding elements independently. First thing to know about these, you've got 2 mounting holes here. Whatever saw you're running, you will almost certainly be using the mounting hole behind where you want to run the blade. So the center of this hole and the 3/4 inch, either 3/4 or 5/8 inch round bar will center up on the blade. The blade then runs on the face of the wheel. It scrubs and then has the side support wheels. These guides come in one assembly, but they can be reversed. So this is set up to run the blade on the left side, but you can reverse all these elements. Disassemble everything, switch them to the side, and have it run with these over here. So you can change the assembly over. So if you have an upper and a lower guide, you might take the same guide, mount upside down, and relocate all this stuff over to this side. The adjusting, here's where you can get screwed up on adjusting. Short version is you want on the sides here, we'll assume this is the top guide, on the sides you want what I call a close but free running fit. For almost all of our applications, you don't want these blocks running hard. You want them, I call it a piece of paper thickness. I joke about wrapping a dollar bill around the blade, bringing these side guides until they touch them, pulling the dollar bill out. You don't have to actually do that, but that's the idea. You want a couple thou gap on either side. To the back, you don't want it rubbing hard. You want something like 3/16 of an inch gap back there between the back of the blade and the wheel. That's to allow the blade to bow back when you first start cutting. In the ideal situation, when you set up a bandsaw like this and you are not cutting, the blade will not be touching the guide elements at all. It will not be touching the sides, it will not be touching the back. As you start to work the blade will bow back and start to spin that back wheel. And then as things get a little hairier, you might start to deflect the blade a little bit and we'll start using those side wheels. But when you are free running, you're not touching anything. To the sides, like I said, you want a couple thousandths of an inch. The back depends on the size of your machine. We usually say something like an 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch gap between the back edge of the blade and the rubbing face of this wheel. That's to allow the blade to bow backwards. But when you adjust, you have to account for that. How do you adjust these things? This can be screwed up. You don't want to do that. The back wheel is held with a set screw. Loosen the set screw and this slides in and out. Get it positioned where you like it. Lock the set screw. Doing these side elements is a 2-step process. Both side elements you can kind of see from the bottom here. This screw runs through here, and taps in to here. So tightening this screw up, or loosening it up, and it's a different size wrench. For whatever reason, Carter Products kind of screwed the pooch on this one. But this and this are different size screws. I wish I'd made them the same. Nope. So if this is loose, these get a little wobbly. But you can then turn these adjusting screws and move those side guides. Allows for very fine adjustment. This one here, the way the screw is arranged, if you turn in, it pulls the guide back. This one, if you turn the screw in, pulls the guide this way. Now, with the screw loose, these things are all kinds of wobbly. You'll have a hell of a time getting it to adjust, because every time you'll think you have it perfectly adjusted, you tighten this screw, everything moves. So what I wind up doing, snug this down, break it loose just barely, just so it's not tight, so that things aren't quite so wobbly. Then you can adjust these screws. Again, we'll run a second video on this, mount on a saw. Just slide this one back, get out of my way. So I'm pretty snug there. That's like feeler gauge tight right there. And if you're planning on doing any profile cutting or radius cutting, that might be an appropriate fit. We're going to run this on a straight cutting only, so I'm going to open that up just a touch. And I always forget which way that goes. So there's hard. And I actually, in this case, could wrap a piece of paper around it. Just take a little bit of that out. And there we go. And then, wish I would have gotten the same size. Tighten that back down. So my close free running fit, I could even open that up a little bit more. This is always an iterative process. You wind up adjusting it, trying it, adjusting it, trying it. Now here's where people screw up. If you do not loosen this screw, if you have it left tight and you just try to work on these, you're going to break something. So loosen this, not actually loose, just kind of break it so you can move these without serious resistance, then set it down again. Now here's the part I see screwed up more than anything. So with a blade in here, first off, it makes sense that the teeth cannot be in between the guide blocks. You'll just rip the teeth off, damage the guide blocks. So the teeth have to be clear of the guides. But they have to be a little bit more than clear. So if I set this rear wheel with my desired 3/16 gap, about like yay, but the teeth just on the edge of the guides, when the blade bows back, the teeth are going to go into the guides, into the side guides, start ripping them up. So I've got to set the blade up initially with the teeth clear of the rubbing blocks plus the distance of my back clearance, such that when I start to work this blade hard and it bows back, it hits that rubbing block before the teeth are digging in these side guides. Oh, that didn't work. Did I mention the part about Loosening the screws just so the things start to move, but not so loose that it falls apart. Yeah. So we'll be adjust it such that with the teeth, this is actually a good technique. Loosen up the rear wheel adjusting nut, set screw, push the blade back until the teeth are just about to hit the side guides. Then set that rear wheel in position. Now, the teeth are just, I'm rubbing on the back, teeth are just clear, and when I mount this on the saw, I will have my 3/16 or so of a gap back there, and the teeth be clear. So that's what you want the blade to look like relative to the guiding elements. Next I'll do a video on a bandsaw showing how to set the guide assembly position relative to the blade. Key takeaways. This screw, loosen it before you adjust these, but just barely break it loose. Don't get it completely sloppy, or these things will be so sloppy that you won't be able to get it adjusted. And this thing can be reassembled backwards. Let me do that for you real quick. If you don't need to watch this, well, don't. For everybody else, remove this screw completely. This comes out. This comes out. This bracket has to be moved. Relocate this bracket to this end. Let me find the appropriate size. Again, it's a different size tool. There we are. So this unscrews. Reassemble. Over here. Stubborn thing. There we go. May have to clean those threads out. And then this can be reassembled here. This reassembled there. That's the general idea. Anyway, it switches the handedness of the blade guide assembly. If you have any questions, please feel free to call Forrest Manufacturing. We'll help you out.